Good evening, everyone. Welcome to join our webinar. My name is Ali, the manager at Enlighteens Education. According to a set of statistics from the U.S. Department of Education, business is one of the most popular fields of study in U.S. colleges. It is also one of the highest paying majors. A business degree gives you knowledge and skills that employers would like to see, and it translates across many roles and industries. However, not everyone should pursue a business major. Who is business major for? What are the pros and cons of studying business at the college level? What should high school students do to prepare if they want to major in business? Let's welcome our senior consultant, Wendy, to bring us a presentation of majoring in business, all you need to know. Hi, Wendy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you, Ali. Okay, everyone. Good evening, everyone. It is a great pleasure to have this webinar focused on business majors. So as Ali talked about, business majors have really gained great popularity over the past 5 or 10 years. So we've definitely got a lot more interest from both students and the parents about showing interest of wanting to major in business. So today's webinar, I would like to go over 4 parts, basically to talk more about the business majors in the US colleges, some of the popular rankings that we're using in helping students and parents better target their application. And I'm also going to talk about some of the admission criteria that are really unique about business majors, and also to help better future students and families to make decisions about whether they feel business major are really good for them. So I'm also going to talk about basically who is right for a business major and how to prepare more specifically to study for business. And finally, very briefly, I'll talk about some of the pros and cons of study business at college level. So this is intended to give a more comprehensive view about not for every major, there's always strengths and weakness. So we always believe the best decision is to try to align applicants their own interest with what a degree is able to offer. Okay, the first part. So I would like to start to provide a brief overview about the business majors here in the US college system. So while we're talking about business, I'm sure we're all probably talking about very different things. Just to clarify, I think there are actually a lot of myths as well as truth about business majors. I think a lot of us, we are probably are more familiar with majors like economics. While business is actually a major that is very much closely related to economics in the sense that they share a lot of, the curriculum is very similar. The prerequisite courses like calculus, introduction to economics, those are all very similar. But something I do want to emphasize is the reason business majors are more popular in general than economics is because it's usually hosted under business school. Not every university has a business school, but it has becoming seems like a very prominent structure for many colleges across the US. So the fact that it's hosted under a standalone school really gives business major students a lot more resources in terms of alumni network, faculty members, and in general, I do believe business offers better resources than economics major. No offense to economics major. And also, people sometimes got confused between undergraduate business majors versus something we call the MBA, a Master of Business Administration. So I'll also talk more about it, about the business majors here. So there are some schools, they offer a degree called BBA, which is the bachelor degree in business administration. But other school, they would offer business as a Bachelor of Science or even Bachelor of Arts. So there are some minor differences, but I think BBA is really, I would say, is probably the most popular degree offered under the umbrella majors of business. So there are also a lot very different in terms of what a BBA prepares applicants for versus an MBA prepares applicants for. So here in this webinar, I'll focus on the undergraduate business degrees. There are also some myths about business in general. Things like, well, some people will not consider business majors at all because they don't think themselves as very outgoing or they're a people person. I think there's something true about business major in the sense that it is a very applied degree, which is both good and bad. So the positive thing is, I mean, as a very applied degree, usually the career opportunities, I would say is much more for business majors than others. But it is also not true that business degrees are only for outgoing individuals. So I think other than personality, their business major also look for applicants who demonstrate very, very strong analytic skills, writing skills, and obviously a communication skill as well. And it is true, business majors are very popular, and I would say even more so now than a few decades ago. So right now, I'm going to present some data about the career prospect of business majors, and you will see things from the starting salary and also the time it takes for applicants to get a job offer. There's significant advantage for business major students. Well, this is definitely the reason why this is becoming even more competitive nowadays. So that's why we believe having a webinar like this will provide more information for parents and students if they're considering business as their future majors. And I also wanted to say, well, business is not easy. The fact that it is competitive make it not easy. It is not easy starting from admission. So be very prepared about the actually more challenging admission process. And especially for the top business schools, because business, and I mean, traditionally it was offered as a professional degree. The business school started to offer undergrad degree was really not very long ago. So this actually make it even more competitive, just to think about if you want to get into a business undergrad, especially good schools like the few ones that I'm going to spend more time talking a bit later. And business majors are not just for future CEOs. So I will talk more about it, about the specific concentrations in business. So it's definitely not just about for those who are only aimed wants to become a CEO in the future. There are concentrations like accounting, digital analytics, and marketing. Those are really for people, I would say in general, if they have an interest, future interest in business. The value of business education, so I'm including a quote. It's about how Wharton School of UPenn, which is really the #1 or the top 3 business school in the US. I think this really shows one of the key things I want to kind of like start in this webinar is business majors really aims to deliver the education that emphasis on applicability. So there's actually a very applied aspect for business majors, both in terms of its curriculum, and it's really translate into, you know, what business major they're looking for their applicants. So something I'll also talk a bit more later is this applied aspect, really ask the parents and prospective applicants to be very mindful about, you know, having very strong indication that the students is actually having extracurriculum experience, academic training that's really more applied than the traditional, for example, compared to STEM or humanities, for example. Okay, so I wanted to talk more about just how business majors are really preferred over the past 5-10 years. So this is a chart, was actually back in 2017. So I wasn't able to find a more recent data compared to this, but this really shows even like a few years ago, if we look at the popularity of the degree, well, about 20% of the graduates, people who receive a bachelor degree, like 20% of them were actually from business majors. This really says that this is a major that is really in high demand. People realize they could benefit a lot by major in business, which is a good news and also bad news, because this also means the admission process, we have to be more strategic in order to make the application stand out. And this is the data that was in 2020 about the job prospect of BBA graduate. So BBA stands for Bachelor of Business Administration. In 2020, like 94% of the BBA graduate, they actually got their job offer. Think about 20 and 20, that was a year during the pandemic. I think it's very impressive. So even during a relatively challenging economic time, I think the career prospect for business students are very good. And their median base salary is almost double the average median salary across for people from other majors. So just some more data to give some assurance that it is a very good, very popular major choices for students. So this is the data from the College of William and Mary. They surveyed the class of 2020 BBA. They asked them, did you have a job by the time you graduated? So actually I think the data are pretty consistent. So over 80% of the students, they actually got a job offer. Either they have a full-time job or they got admitted and graduate professional school with a BBA. I think there were actually two reasons for that. The first is, well, the major really make the applicants become more desirable for employers and also for professional school. Another reason I would also say is because business school majors, they're very competitive. So they really admitted one of the best students. So the fact that those students are really good, no matter from their GPAs, academic, extracurriculum, those also make them stand out in the job market. But this is really not to discourage parents and students and say, oh, this is too competitive to apply. I think our point is really just trying to say this is actually, especially the students have interest in pursue a business-related career, this could be a very rewarding major, a very practical major. And many schools, many colleges, they're actually they're also aware about the high demand. So there are actually a lot more choices than before. The good news of that is that would mean, relatively speaking, the admission rate is going to be higher with a variety of different degrees. So I want to kind of talk about the basic structure about the BBA degree. I don't want to generalize across all the colleges because, like I said, some universities, even some Ivy League universities, they may not have business school. But they offer business degree in some other form. If we want to focus on the undergraduate degree, BBA rather than MBA, which will be another webinar to talk about. So the undergraduate degree, there are actually different forms. I would say there are in general two different forms. The first one is something we call a business in a bachelor degree in business administration hosted under business school. So that is really the most popular, and I would say also one of the most competitive programs to get admitted. So those are usually the degrees that students, they would get admitted as the freshman, and then they would spend at least 4 years studying courses offered under business school. I mean, also courses offered in other colleges. But increasingly, there are actually also double degree or joint degree program offered kind of in collaboration between the business school and the college and some arts and science or some other schools, other colleges under the same university. So they also offer business related major. I mean, it also depends whether those degrees are in greater demand or less in demand, but I would say those that are hosted under the business schools are usually the more desired one for simple reasons, like because business school is usually one of the schools with the greatest resource. That would mean they have, their really good alumni network, internship, like training, career training opportunities, one of the best faculty. So if the students have a choice, let's say if they receive offer from business related major from different schools, the priority, usually we would suggest to go with the one that is under the business school, because that's usually the most competitive one. And it's also the one that's more likely to be better recognized and have access to more resources. So this is just like another example about like just how business degree or how business majors, they're hosted, they're offered under different school. So this is the academic structure of USC, University of Southern California. So they have bachelor degrees in business administration under the Marshall School of Business. They also have a different school of accounting. So accounting, they also offer business majors, of course, with a specialized concentration in accounting. They also have degrees like this World Bachelor degree in business. They collaborate with the School of Cinematic Arts. So I think those are the type of program that really target students who are interested in business administration position in the movie industry. And then there's also business major offered in collaboration between the business school and international relations, which is usually hosted under the College of Art and Sciences. So here is really just to show there's usually not, unlike economics, which is usually just under the School of Arts and Sciences, I think there's some variation about the structure of business degree. But like I said previously, I think usually the most prestigious, the most competitive program is usually hosted under their business school, if there's one in that college. So this is the program structure of Wharton, which is consistently ranked as
#1,
if not the top 3 business schools in US. So the Durham Fisher program in management and technology, this is I would say one of the most competitive BBA program here in the nation, with an admission rate like maybe 3%. So this actually is not a BBA degree. You would get the degree in economics, and then students got the opportunity to take courses in engineering and applied science. I think this is actually something give greater advantage for business students, because I think increasingly colleges also realize it's not enough to prepare business major students with communication or like marketing, but also to be able to give students more hardcore skills, data analytics skills, or even engineering skills. This is also why I think we're seeing an increase in those joint program offering. So those are the type of degree that they have a business concentration. You may either get a BBA or be a Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Economics, and the prerequisite might differ. But I think something in common for those degrees, they're all considered very competitive business majors and very desired for their graduates. The job opportunities are great. They're really very much high in demand. And I would actually suggest that I think it's a really good idea to also pursue double degree with a major in business and another degree of interest. So I think just depending on different colleges we're talking about, there are actually very good options to think about how to apply for a double degree program or joint offering program, program. So here is another list about the different concentration. So business is just an umbrella term. I think several pretty common concentrations that you can see across most business schools includes accounting, management, finance, marketing, organizational behavior, and operation. And some other school, they offer, for example, like Cornell, they have really good hotel management program. So their business also have some other concentrations like, for example, hospitality. So those are also, they would collaborate with business school to offer programs or offer core classes. Well, this is kind of another way for us to look at the business concentrations and their future career opportunities. So management is really the concentration that we see a lot of the MBA courses are offered. So management concentration focuses on while their future career path, the CEO, it's about really how to effectively managing an organization. So classes about organizational behaviors, management theories, management cases, finance. So this is for students who might have a future career or ambition in doing banking and finance. I would say this is also the concentration, probably has the highest requirements for math, because finance is a very quantitative major. Marketing, so marketing is also a really popular concentration. So marketing for people, for students who wants to have a career in marketing, digital marketing, especially for the past 5-10 years, is becoming very popular and in high demand by companies of all sorts. Operation, entrepreneurship, accounting, international business, and The last part are, I would say, the less popular. I wouldn't say less popular or less offered by other colleges, but management, marketing, finance, and accounting, those are the few concentrations that you can almost always see for under most business schools here in the US. So students, they do got to develop a concentration with the business majors. So they could have a degree of BBA, but with a concentration in marketing. I mean, some other, also depending on how the college, they design their degree program, it could also be, it is a degree in accounting. So all of those, they're considered business. And relatively speaking, they're all pretty competitive to get a minute. Okay, the next component, I would like to spend some time talking about the rankings. I'm sure this is something we're all very familiar with. This is kind of the roadmap for a lot of us to think about, you know, how to decide what schools to apply, and also to kind of evaluate the possibility of getting in, because the ranking is really, you know, I think in a way that indicates whether this degree is valued. So here are a few rankings that we would recommend for parents and students if they want to learn more about the list of the top business program rankings. So do note that there's a difference between the best undergraduate business program versus the best business school. I think if the goal is, I mean, there's obviously a great overlap, but these rankings, they use very different matrix. For example, the business school ranking, they focus on aspects like faculty publication. I mean, having a good faculty is important to make a program like very strong for undergraduate education, but that's not the only thing. So undergraduate business program ranking, they're actually based on a wider range of factors or different range of factors. They look more at things about like the undergraduate, their self-reported satisfaction about the program, their career opportunity, their median salary, like something I just talked about. So I would suggest, of course, you wanted to look at those rankings and then to decide what are the top ones on the list. But the US News Best Undergraduate Business Program, this is the one that's probably going to be most helpful, just to see what are just to point out the places to apply. I mean, the list changes year by year, but I think the ones on the top, they're pretty consistent. Those are really I think those are the dream places for whoever wants to become to major in business. So I want to just quickly show the US News rankings of 2022. So if you look at the list, this is the top 20 schools that offered business school. You probably won't be surprised that there's a great overlap between those top universities and those with the top business schools, except that I think on the bottom of the list, almost like starting from 11, you're starting to see more public universities. So most of the top business schools, unfortunately, they're private universities. So I think that one of the factors to consider is obviously the tuition. So with tuition really rising for the past few years, the top business schools, their tuition is also, I think this is definitely a factor to consider other than the ability to get in. But there are actually some really good business school program offered by public universities. For example, University of Michigan, their business school, Ross School of Business is really, I think, is ranked as number 4 for undergraduate education. And their tuition is also, I think, more friendly than some of the top schools here. One school that I want to note in particular is actually University of Southern California. So this is a school that I know it might not appear to be the ones, does not appear like the Ivy League schools or those that are highly desired, but I think this school is actually the one has a lot of value. So I'll talk more about why this might be a really good business major selection. So USC has been rising in US News ranking for the past 5-10 years. I think it's almost on the same league with schools like UC Berkeley and UCLA. It is a private school, I think the university has been really successful in recruiting top faculty and getting a lot of endowments and funding to develop their program. So they actually is top 20, one of the top 20 business schools, especially in the area of accounting. So they recently have the school, I think their Lavelle School of Accounting was actually established not very long ago because of their strength in accounting program. Their entrepreneurship program is also very good. So what does this really mean for business majors? So remember, unlike other majors, I think business major is really the one that would benefit from a very strong alumni network and good career preparation. So school like USC, they're very kind of like mindful about providing their students with internship opportunities. So some of the data they provided, they actually 90% of their students, they have an internship opportunity. And then the other thing, I think people, sometimes we would apply for schools just based on their ranking, their US News college ranking. But I think location of the university, of the school is definitely a bigger factor for business majors than others. I think the reason is straightforward because he wants to land in a good job. And then in a big city and a location where the robust business infrastructure, like the universities in the Bay Area, in New York, DC, right? So I think the location of the school, sometimes it definitely weights more in business school like to think about which schools to apply compared to other majors. So the alumni network, something I've already mentioned. So when researching which schools that might work the best, I think the US ranking, like all those school ranking, they definitely serve its purpose. But also I want to encourage parents and students to also to think about the alumni network and also the location of the school. So that could also be depending on the goal of the students, whether they wanted to start a business or they want to look for a big company and a corporate career after graduation. I think the location, the alumni network is definitely the factor to also look into when looking at all those schools on the list. Okay, so that is about the ranking. So now I want to move on to talk about who is business major for. This is something also at Enlighteens, we wanted to help our students we wanted to kind of help students better understand their own strengths, their own career interest. So for business majors, at the beginning of the webinar, I talk about, there's this myth about, oh, those are only for people who are outgoing, who wants to make big money. But I think it's actually not entirely true. Like at this point, I think I'm sure like having learned all about the different concentrations, what you could do with a business degree. I think it's definitely not true to say, it's just about a particular type of personality. There's actually a lot more you could do with a business major. To think about not just about landing in the job, but also apply for law school, apply for an MBA program, or continue a PhD education. I think business majors, they really prepare students also for those opportunities as well. So is business major right for you? So I want to kind of like talk about like the three types of individuals or the three groups of individuals who might actually benefit the most from a business major. So something we talk about the first one is we would kind of call those CEO, CFO, or CTO. So basically the very top, like the funder or the top management people, right? So they obviously, so if students have like a really career aspiration about becoming someone to start a business, or they really wants to, move up to be able to lead a business, start to lead an organization. So I think this is really business major. There's no better major than business major for these type of individuals, this type of students. So something that they could really get from the business major, they could have very valuable connections and resources. So like I said, it is a very applied major. So even for undergrad students, it's very important to kind of like get connected with alumni. and then to get internship. People got internship or even their jobs from their alumni. And this unique alumni network is really not available if you're a major in art and science, in history, or some other major. So for someone who values and can also take advantage of the networking opportunity, I think this is really something kind of implied for a business major. So for funders or higher level management, and then the second type of individual, we believe business major would be really good choice would be ones that they also are looking for executive position or some upper management positions. I think business majors, I mean, just from their curriculum, all the courses that are required as a business major, I think something they teach about, like, for example, leadership, organizational behaviors. Those are the type of courses I think students really got the opportunity to learn about things about how to, effectively manage a team. And there are also a lot of cases, business cases that are taught, which is a very distinct course format than some other courses in college. So those type of training really aims to prepare students with a mindset about being able to lead a group of individuals to solve problem and collaborate, and then also being able to effectively understand how to do teamwork. And also for management, finally, for people who actually already, let's say they have a business, they know they will manage in the future, or they will start their own business. So this is particularly true for the concentration of entrepreneurship. So in many business schools, there is sometimes it's the marketing and entrepreneurship, or they have a concentration of entrepreneurship. So, those are the concentration that they teach students about the process of starting a business, right? So there are actually a lot of skills, resources, or theories in those areas. So I think business majors are also for people who already know that they're going to start a business. This is probably also why I think MBA is also a very popular choice, because those are really for individuals who have spent some time working in the industry. They're at a different stage of their career. But also I think for undergraduate business major, a lot of those courses, they really aim to prepare the students with leadership, effective communication, but also a lot of hardcore skills like everything that an individual would need in order to start to manage, ultimately become upper management, take an upper management position, or start their own business. Okay, so here I wanted to kind of talk about the business major admission data, where also some of the criteria. This is really something I'm sure our audience is probably most interested part. We've talked about like business major, are really becoming even more popular and competitive. So how competitive this could be. Now I just wanted to show some data about the business major admission rate. So here I just want to kind of like compare a few different schools. So UC Berkeley, the Hart School of Business, this is really the top, one of the most prestigious business schools in the country. I mean, it's not surprising. Their business administration rate is really a little around 5%. I mean, if you're interested to compare their general overall admission rate with business administration rate, I mean, it's not uncommon. It's very common that the business administration is far lower, unsurprisingly, than the overall admission rate. But I do want to also point out, don't lose hope, because there are some business schools, they're actually pretty friendly. They have a relatively better, higher admission rate. I mean, still competitive, but already very good compared to some of those most selective schools. University of Indiana, their Cali School of Business is also a very reputable school. I think the fact that the location of this particular university might be one of the factors. They may not attract the best students, but it is still a very good program. So my point here is there are actually a lot of strategies in terms of selecting the schools to apply. So we have their historic admission data. I think sometimes if the students feel they wanted to get a business major, there are still some options with better, more friendly. They're actually with higher admission rates, but still offers very good business education, like University of Indiana. Okay, so since we talk about UC Berkeley, this is a very good school. I'm sure it's a school on many students' list. This is their undergraduate class. So the university released their undergraduate class profile. Just one note here, UC Berkeley, the Hart School of Business, they actually made a recent change. So starting from 2023, which is next year, they're actually going to offer business degree, undergraduate degree for all the freshmen. This means all the high school students, they can apply for this. But what was the situation before that? So before that, you can only select business major as starting from sophomore. So this is why if you look at 2020 data for their application received for UC Berkeley students, there were only 500 students. It is really unbelievable if this is offered at the high school level. So this really means that for all the UC Berkeley students, the first year students, about 500 students, they apply for a business major, and then about over 2,000 students from transfer students. So I think the transfer, this could in itself could be another webinar, but I do want to point out, if you're thinking about major in business, I mean, of course, you might consider doing a transfer on this during the second year, right? But just look at the data, I would not recommend so. I think it's actually more challenging to major in business more than any other major as a transfer student. Because if you look at the data, the admission rate is actually much lower for transfer students. And then the transfer students need to have actually far higher GPA than existing students in order to have a major in business. So I think the message that we got from the data is, in general, business school, they're actually more friendly towards their own students. But this is about UC Berkeley. I mean, not every business school, they use this structure. I mean, there are actually many more other schools, they would admit business major as a freshman, but Berkeley will kind of follow that model starting from next year. Okay, so what about some of the standards that are publicized by school, the Hart School of Business? So so they do say, you know, they really value academic achievement. They also value impact and consistency in extracurriculum activity. They look for personal attributes like leadership, maturity, communication, and analytical skill. So this might not be that helpful because I'm sure sounds like pretty generic for some other majors as well. So they also provided some of the weights they used when evaluating admission. So actually like 50%, they really look for good GPAs and coursework. So by taking the right, for students to be able to have good standardized scores, have high GPAs, being able to demonstrate that they are strong in academic work is really important for business school admission. Also the essay, they value how people talk, you know, the narratives they put into all sorts of essay. It's also important to note that for business school major, it's not unusual for them to look for extra number of essays. So again, kind of they're really creating more filters because they're just so popular. They wanted to use those as filter to really select the best students. Okay, so that's for UC Berkeley. And now another very popular, very prestigious business school by University of Michigan, the Ross School of Business. So this is just what they're looking for as application. Do note, they ask the applicants to complete the four essays. So as you can see, while if a student really intends to prepare for application in the business major, definitely more efforts needs to be put in preparing the application material on top of having a pretty solid records in GPA, extracurricular activities, AP, and other standard tests. So the University of Michigan is one school that their model is you can apply as a business major as the first year, while in fact about 80% of their BBA class was actually enrolled from the high school seniors. So I think this is kind of more like those friendly, relatively speaking, more friendly schools for high schoolers, unlike UC Berkeley. But then also UC Berkeley is kind of like switching to this model. So you don't have to wait until the second year in order to apply or declare your business major. So this is about the Ross School of Business. This is probably the top 4. I think the most recent ranking is the top 4 business school offering undergraduate program. Okay, so this is just like this pyramid, inverted pyramid structure to see, how colleges select candidates, which is not that different from, the general college admission process. So having a really solid academic record, testing, GPA, are definitely giving more weight than actual curriculum activity. But this is also really not to say applicants should just focus on testing and courses. In order to get into the most competitive business school program, I think having very impressive and coherent program of actual curriculum activities would also help. For example, winning some business cases, participating in some leadership summer programs. So those are just one of a few examples that how students could try to plan early to try to really make everything that they do to be able to live up to all those very challenging requirements of a business major. This is the students' first year admitted student profile of University of Michigan, the Ross School of Business. So if you look at their admitted students composition, the average high school GPA, their average SAT, ACT score, I think those really says a lot about the type of students they admitted. Those are really one of the best students. Also, I like to mention is for those flagship public schools, there really also are good choices in the sense that, for practical reasons, because they're public schools. So I think they're also more affordable. At the same time, the quality of education, it's not really compromised because they're cheaper, but I do think that's a factor students and parents could take into consideration about those public schools like UC Berkeley, University of Michigan, UCLA. Tuition-wise, I think there would be a better options compared to the private schools. Okay, some of the required prerequisite courses, these are also pretty, I think pretty common across business majors. So we would recommend students to take courses including calculus, economics, advanced AP classes in economics, principles of business, and those. Those are the types of prerequisite courses usually would actually make a student eligible for applying for business majors. So what about some of the pros and cons of studying business? As much as business majors are popular, it might not be for everyone. So I do want to briefly note about some of the pros and cons to conclude today's webinar. The biggest strength or something that really attracts the greatest application is probably the job opportunity provided by business majors. So with a business major, I think students actually have a wide variety of career opportunities like marketing analyst. I would say broadly anything related to in the business sector. And their career progression, they also, major in business school, the fact that you have access of the great alumni network and career preparation from those programs, really, I think also naturally people got promoted or they advance in their career faster. Well, I would say mostly business career than students with another major. And it is a very applied major, but also, the courses also emphasis on theories, things like principles of economics. So it's not just about like very fluffy or, it's definitely not easy. So there's actually strike a pretty good balance between theory and practice. And for people, if they're interested in starting their own business, to have to join a startup or, manage their own family business, there are actually great practical skills that are part of the business school curriculum that actually teach people how to start a business. So what about some of the disadvantage of business majors? Well, the cost. So as a 4-year program, I mean, especially most business school, the top business schools, they're private. So the cost is tuition-wise, and also the time cost is very high. So speaking of the application, the business application probably takes much more effort than application for another major, like for all those additional requirements usually included in the business school application. And it is very competitive. It is probably becoming even more so due to the high demand. Because I think people all realize, wow, this is a degree that really seems to generate great return. So that really leads to more future application. I think my speculation is business majors are going to become even more competitive in the next couple of years. So do prepare for a more competitive process. And but also, I mean, this also really says it's important to be more strategic in the application process. And the courses, I mean, even after people got in, be prepared for pretty challenging curriculum. So business, people would say, oh, is that something about talking? Well, actually, there's a lot of hardcore classes included, and students would complain, not really complain, but they would comment about how the program is really, they need to spend a lot of time finishing all sorts of assignments, doing internships, networking. It's not unusual for students to feel like very challenging or even they feel burned out during the program. But I think this is exactly what makes this degree valuable, right? So students do spend a lot of time actually finishing all the requirements. So keep in mind that the curriculum for business degrees, they're also very demanding. Especially for some of the joint program that I talked about earlier during today's webinar. Some of those even require courses from schools like engineering or some other STEM subjects. So the curriculum itself is actually, I would say, more hybrid, and students got to be able to be prepared to take classes from a wider range compared to a single discipline. So that concludes my today's webinar, and I hope all the information is helpful.
Thank you, Wendy, for a very informational presentation. And that's all for tonight. Thank you all for joining us. If you'd like to join our WeChat group to receive our weekly articles and the webinar updates, please scan my WeChat code on the screen. I will invite you to the group. And also, please feel free to contact me over phone calls or emails if you'd like to know more about our services. All right, that's all for tonight. I hope to see you again same time next Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, everyone. Bye.